I say, the process is you got to raise it, and then cut it, cut the seed pods out of the top, and then strip all the leaves off. And those dead leaves will defile your molasses when you're finished. So it's a long process. Normally, when I do this, I have my kids from the Appalachian Studies Class to come help me do this, but since COVID has happened, where I can't do that. So I have to do it myself. And then once we get all the leaves off and the seed pods out, then we'll grind it and take the juice out, boil it down until it becomes final product. Those are the seed pods I was selecting to get the seeds off of. I'll save those and dry them, put them in the pine or quart jar, seal it up, and that way no bugs will get into it. I'll get one and show you here. You see, this is brown and this is white. When your seed begins to turn white, then that lets us know that the content of the sugar is just right to go ahead and mill it. Until it turns white, we want to stay away from milling it because the sugar content won't be great enough. Everett's, Kentucky. He's got the mill. He's got the little horse. We're not going to use the horse today. We'll use gasoline. But he's got the little horse that pulls it just like they did years ago. And it's took most of the day, but he's did this for me the last 3 or 4 years. And he enjoys coming to Redbird. Yeah, you know, for him to get up that early, and a couple years ago he brought his little donkey with him. For him to get up and do that, and come over here, and he doesn't charge a whole lot to do it. You know, he just likes to do it. This year, my sugar cane didn't do so well. Normally, most of it's this size or bigger. But this year it didn't do too good, so I was trying to gather enough to go through the process. This was something that was common years ago in eastern Kentucky, because that's how they got their sugar. They didn't have money, or probably there was no way to get it shipped in, so they used honey and sorghums instead of sugar. Now, there's the difference between molasses and sorghum. Some folks say that they're all the same thing. Basically, they are. They both come from sugar cane, but the cane that you make molasses out of is a large stalk, maybe that round. And it doesn't grow too well this far north. So here in Kentucky, they've always used this type, and this is called sugar drip. That's the variety that I use, and I've been doing this about 5 or 6 years. I got into it a few years ago to try and bring back some of the things that we did. Our culture was part of our culture, and that's one of them. Making quilts, preserving food, but drying it, and making sorghums. Wasn't a school day, I'd have help. I'd have Heather's children out here helping. They went down, and the girls did, and we cut it some yesterday, a load, and brought it up, and they enjoyed doing that. But this is the, as I said, this is how folks in Appalachia got their sugar content to cook with and make cookies and and so on, before, before modern times. And so we still do it as part of our culture. We're proud of our culture and we don't want it to die. It takes about 20 gallons of juice to make a gallon of sorghum. It's about a 20-to-1 process. So I'm saying with what I've got here, if I get it all stripped down and run it through the mill, it'll process probably, I want to guess at about, it might do 20 gallons. Be close. And maybe do a gallon of sorghum, or a little less. Now last year I had 3 or 4 times this. As a matter of fact, I gave the guy a load already stripped. And when it's big, it's easy. And I had help last year. Jagger Bowling was really a good help. He was in my class and become a pretty good seamstress. Yeah. We made a beautiful quilt. It's on a line now. Break up a little bit. Here's the run through there to show you. Talk a little bit about this process.
Round up a few here to.
Got some of that little stuff we didn't fool with. So I had plenty small cane, but it don't mill out much. Now, in earlier times, they used a mill like this, but in the earliest times it was 2 stones, and they had it geared up so that they could put a long pole on the top of it and hook it to a mule, and he would go around the circle, and as he went around the circle, he turned the mill, and you had a guy feeding it, and every time the pole went around, he'd have to duck down till the pole got past him, and he'd get up and he'd feed the meal. So
we left the mule at home.
Yeah, he does have.
He's a lot slower than this, This just mechanized it and made it easier to move around different places. But every year I try to do 2 or 3 at least with the mule, just for the historical aspect of it.
You do this up at college at
I do it at Southeast Community College in Cumberland, at the Pine Mountain Settlement School, and we generally do it over here at the Redbird School, but this year, everything going on. Last year that cane was that big, as big as a broomstick, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had really nice cane last year.
And it put off a lot more juice than this.
Yeah. I believe that's it. We can get enough there to show it. Then, once it's been milled, you take the juice and put it in a pan and cook it until the old-time method is until it drips off.
Kind of flakes off like hard candy would off the end of the paddle. You'd dip the paddle like that, and then as it cooled, it would come off in one big sheet. But this is not, this is a long way from being ready. Right now what we're doing, you got to skim all the impurities that boils up. All the fiber and chlorophyll.
Yeah, most of that's chlorophyll coming off in there. It came out of the outer part of the stalk.
As this boils down, and water will boil at it and it starts to caramelize. And 228 degrees, 230 degrees, really wherever you're at according to sea level, it'll be turned into sorghum syrup. But the whole time this is boiling, these impurities will boil up out of it. And old timers, they feed that to hogs and stuff, you know. It's got a lot of nutrients in it. It just don't taste good enough to want to eat it.
And they made quite a bit too, back in the old days.
Yeah, they'd do this for days and make gallons and gallons.
That was one of their sources for sugar. Of course, we buy cane sugar now. The real good sugar that you get at Domino's is pure cane sugar. And sugar cane grows a lot bigger than this.
Yeah, see, a lot of people don't know the difference between molasses and sorghum. Everybody calls this molasses. This is actually sorghum because it comes from sorghum cane. Molasses is a byproduct of making sugar. When they spin the sugar, the molasses slings out of it. Or you can boil it to this point, you know, and stop it without going to sugar. But this will never boil into sugar. It'd turn into rock candy, you know, where molasses you can boil on down into sugar. The more you boil this, it just turns into taffy, then rock candy.
Yeah, they used to make what they call tough jack. And I wish I knew how to do that. I used to listen to my mother talk about doing it, and they talk about they had to pull it. I guess it got really thick, and they pull that and keep folding it back.
Keep cooking it, I guess, to the point where it's about ready to turn into rock candy, I would say.
Well, in the end, they didn't make candy out of it. That's what they do at Christmas time. And in years past, they would have would be called a stir-off. And they would make quite a bit more, and the whole community would gather in. They'd bring their guitars and fiddles and banjos, and they'd play music, do square dances, and the kids would, when this got ready to become sorghum, they'd get pieces off of the sorghum stalk, and they dip it in there, and then they'll cool it, and then they'd eat it.
It'll get a big foam on top of it, and they'd twirl it in that foam, you know. And when it's cool, that foam settles back into liquid. But
it takes a lot of juice out of the cane to make a gallon of sorghum.
It takes 10 gallons of juice to make a gallon of finished syrup. It's not a real good return on it, but I mean, it's something I enjoy doing.
We had probably, what do you think, about 7 gallons?
Probably so, yeah. We'd had that pan full if that cane would have been, you know, normal size.
Oh yeah.
We'd have had a pan full of it.
Last year we had the big pan full.
Yeah.
We used the big stove.
Well, actually, we had both of them full, if you remember. And then transferred it over into the other one.
Yeah.
We had a lot of juice last year. It's a good cane.
Yeah, we had almost 4 gallons of sorghum.
And as far as another thing you got to keep tending to, you don't want to kill the boil. You don't want to boil it too hard, because that green will just boil right back in it and you won't be able to get it out. And generally, even if this pan was full, you're looking at about 4 hours cook time. The bigger the pan, makes it cook off a little quicker because you got more surface area for evaporation. But if this pan was full, it'd be right at 4 hours finishing it. know, where you work so much and stuff, you really can't do much more than I do. I do 3 or 4 programs a year, and then try to make 2 or 3 batches at home. I'd like to have a bigger pan, but it just don't have time to operate it.
Okay.
That's the bigger pan. This is his bigger stove. And that's made from a gas tank off of a Mack truck, right?
School bus gas tank. Yep. This one will hold about 35 gallons of juice. And that one over there probably about 15. I had it measured, but I don't remember. And then, you know, you have to keep stirring it with this to keep it from, because it'll be real thin in that pan. You got to stir it real slow to keep it from scorching, because it'll scorch like crazy. And I imagine that's where they got the name stir off at.
Yeah.
Because they're stirring it off in the end.
Now the mission did this as a business one time. The dorm boys grew it, and then they would go cut it. They had a mill set up at the mouth of Spring Creek, and they made Redbird Mission sorghums and sold it all over the country. And it was quite profitable. But then, you know, in the process, the school burned and the dorm program sort of dwindled, and they got away from it. But we were pretty self-sufficient with the farm. The mission produced their own eggs, the school did, and own milk, own pork, beef. So they had most of the food they produced. And then the kids worked, they did the work, which I think was better for them. Most of those people were successful.
Well, if you do a job like that, at the end of the day, you feel good about what you've done. You got pride, hey, I can do this. You know, I can milk a cow, or I can raise chickens, or whatever. And then, you know, when you got to take care of something that's alive and keep it alive, it teaches you more responsibility about life itself.
I was talking to someone that was in the dorm years ago, and we were talking about they grew their own beef and processed it. And we were talking about ball game nights. They always had cube steak and gravy and corn, and it was all grown on the farm. And I said, you know, growing up, I still remember how good those meals were. Yeah, because they would allow us guys who were from the community that play basketball, we could get to go to the dorm before home game and eat with the dorm students, and they always fixed that for us. And that has stuck out in my memory as being one of the more pleasant moments of my life. And it's Herman Saylor, or Herman Helton's wife, Charlene. Huh? She said, I still like that meal today, but she said it's not as good. It was really good.
Yeah.
And that's like equipment here. You can't buy, that I've been able to find, you can't buy a new mill. I'd say the last one was produced in the 20s, maybe early 30s, and they don't make them anymore. And if you find one, it's old and wore out, so I had to make this one from scratch. Because you can't find them, you know. They do. I guess sugar and popularity of these, of just going to the store and buying it, has killed all that, and there's no market for it. I mean, since I started this in 2008, there's been a lot of people nationwide that's took interest in it, you know. And a lot of people locally took interest, followed me around and different things, and it's a lot of work for really no more than you get out of it. You got to love it to stick with it. And so far, I'm the only one that's stuck with it, you know.
We're glad you did.
And I probably will till I can't do it. If it's a long pole lay in it, boat in it, it'll go way out there and then way over here. And you hook the mule to it, and he'll just walk in a circle, you know, all day, and he'll feed that cane through that meal.
The way it's geared, it still moves pretty fast, doesn't it?
With him?
With a horse on it?
No, it's real slow. It's actually slower than I've got this set up. But, you know, everybody wants to see that a lot of times. At the college, I do that, and we've got it now to where we do it in the evening, like they generally would years ago. And we've got live old-time music playing. People, you know, 2 or 3 live bands, and trying to give it that feel that it would have had years ago. I work for the Harlan School Board as a bus mechanic.
Okay.
But I've been doing this for college since 2009. They had done it every year, and then the guys that done it generally started dying off, and they didn't have anybody to do it, so I got involved in it.